We acknowledge and respect the first humans of the unceded land we call San Francisco, the Ramaytush Ohlone. We condemn the genocide of these and other tribes across the Western Hemisphere. We honor their legacy and history, and we support rematriation and sovereignty efforts.
I love San Francisco. I mean, I live in Berkeley. Spent a lot of my time in Oakland, and between then and so on. I just love it. It's laid back. It's proximity to so many great things, as we know. I mean, let's not go to the old things we hear all the time: the wine country, the Sierras, Southern California, the desert. I mean, it's really just perfectly located, and of course, I love the international nature of it.
That was Old Skool Café chef Eddie Blyden. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco, a podcast celebrating the people and places that make this city so special. Welcome to Season 6, Episode 1, Part 2. Last week on the show, you met Old Skool's founder and president, Teresa Goines. You heard about how Teresa merged several interests into the swanky supper club she now runs in San Francisco's Bayview neighborhood. In Part 2, Teresa sets the stage for how she met Chef Eddie and brought him on board at Old Skool. Then we meet Chef and learn about his worldly, circuitous route to the Bay Area, which he's called home for nearly 3 decades now. And of course, we'll hear about Eddie's time working with formerly incarcerated youth and kids from the foster system at Old Skool Café. Old Skool is open for happy hour every Wednesday from 4:30 to 7:30. Do yourself a favor and book a table for dinner Thursdays through Saturdays from 5 to 9 p.m. Here's Teresa, followed by Chef Eddie.
So a dear friend of mine in the community, Lydia, had said she knew that, so this is when Old Skool was still in my home the first few years, right?
Right.
And was trying to still do all the pieces of this vision of Old Skool, even though it was in my house and I didn't have a building. But that didn't stop me from, we can still, just a smaller scale, do all the same things. And so she knew I was looking for a chef. So anywhere I was out, I was looking for chefs to come teach my youth, restaurant, front of the house professionals to come teach the service, hospitality piece, speakers for the life skills portion. And so I was always out there hustling for free, amazing mentors, right?
Right.
And so Lydia said, hey, there's this chef that's coming to teach some youth. She also worked with the youth program. And she said, he's going to teach a cooking class. You want to come take a look? He might be a good, person for you to connect with. So I showed up and I watched him, working with these other young people in a different program. And I was just a guest and I was like, oh, he's amazing. So, of course, I got his information, introduced myself, and then followed up with him right away, which I do.
Oh, she followed up.
Hey, would love for you to come and teach the youth in our program, and didn't hear back. So then I followed up. I don't know if I emailed or text, but I did one after the other. Didn't hear back. Then I text. Then I called. Nothing. And so, but I'm persistent. That's how Old Skool came to be. You can't give up when you don't hear back.
Must have been emails, because back then texting wasn't very huge.
Maybe not. Yeah. Maybe it's phone calls. So after several times, then I knew where he worked. So then I showed up at his restaurant. So I think it was either Magnolia's or the Olympic. And there I am at the counter. I'm like,
swear
hi.
It was the tail end of 21st Amendment. I might have been
Could
wrong.
have been one of those places. I'm like, I remember seeing you at both of those two places. So I'm like, remember me? And then he couldn't, I'm there in the flesh. So yeah. I'm like, hey, can we set a date for you to come in and work with my youth? And so then it was all history. So he started coming and teaching, cooking workshops, but then we would also do these dinner salons before dinner salons were a thing. I was, again, my house is all I had. So we would do these small events for like 20 people. I'd invite my friends and we'd do a menu and it'd be suggested donation because, of course, you can't sell food out of your home.
All right.
And so it was great. And so he started working. Then he would bring his chef friends in. So we were getting some of the best chefs in San Francisco that were coming to work with our youth, doing these little pop-up dinner salons that would give our youth the real formal practice. It's not just a cooking workshop now. It's like we're executing it for real people that are going to eat it. It needs to be plated. It needs to be classy. And we
Not
do
just kitchen. But...
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we'd put linens, and we would have music in the home. We would do everything you see here at Old Skool today. We would do these pop-ups in my home.
In your home.
And he was just great. And then we would do these our gala fundraisers for like 250 people at Kokomo's. It was a salsa club back in the day.
Oh, what a wonderful family.
Right? They had no kitchen, so he would bring in the full kitchen outside.
Wow.
Again, bring all his chef friends to help out, fully volunteer run. And we would do these big, huge fundraisers of like, hey, this is what Old Skool Cafe would look like if we could get our own building, if we had our own restaurant. This is a picture of what it would look like every night. So he did that for a few years with me as well. And was a huge part of our initial Old Skool family.
Nice. And then now let's fast forward in your version of the story.
Yes.
And you said it was what occasion here?
Yes. So I was doing it out of my home for about 8 years.
Okay.
And then the building got open to the public. Well, now it's 11 going on. It'll be 12 next year. And so for our 10-year anniversary, I reached out and said, hey, Eddie, like, we haven't connected. We'd lost touch. He was busy doing his thing. I was busy with Old Skool. And I said, I'd love to have you come back as my guest, because you were one of the early people that believed in my vision, that invested in it, and I'd love for you to just come. And it was a very small, intimate group. So at the end, I just said I wanted to introduce so everybody knew, hey, this is one of the chefs that believed in the vision, that helped in this very kitchen, because we did a throwback pop-up in my home.
Oh, nice.
So we had the mayor, and we had several supporters and donors to showcase this was the original Old Skool in my home for 8 years. So we did it just like we did in the old days. And I'm like, and we have the chef here that used to do these with me.
And her home is still a mini Old Skool.
Nice. I would imagine.
It's just an extension.
Yeah.
It's like the VIP area.
Yes.
Walking in.
I bet.
The photographs, the history, the colors.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing to see.
Maybe we can get some of those old photos of when it was at your house.
Absolutely. You got it. Yeah. So that was really just a special night. And then we did the tour there, did a little dinner, and then we were going to finish the tour here at Old Skool, and this is what it has become, right?
Oh, right.
And so, after, it was just so great to reconnect after all these years and just to thank him again. I have such a special place in my heart for the people that believed in the vision when it was still a vision, when it was still in my home, when it was not. It's easy to capture it once you walk in here and it's already exists,
done.
right?
Yeah.
But those that stay, and it was 8 years. We're not talking like 6 months. It was years and years of it not looking like it was ever going to be anything. So those that were with me in the early days are like my ride or die.
Yeah. OG.
Yes.
Or OC.
Yes.
Original chef.
I like that, the OC.
That also means something different in California. I won't go there.
Yeah.
But so I asked him after, we were at a place that we're ready to continue to grow. And I just said, hey, I know you're, working with private clients now, that you've kind of moved away from the stress of the restaurant. There's a different kind of grind there. But I said, but you were so good with our youth. And I'd really love to have you back working with like your caliber and your heart and your ability as we're now poised to start growing. What do you think about coming? I said, and I can pay you now.
Oh, big difference. Big difference.
So I asked him to come back and be our executive chef, our director of culinary, gifted with the youth. And he said yes. So here we are.
I was born in Nigeria. My father was born in Sierra Leone.
Okay.
And my mother was born in Worcester, Massachusetts.
Okay.
So my roots are United States, the Virgin Islands, where my father's grandparents came from. Okay. And Sierra Leone, where we spent some of our time growing up.
I definitely caught Massachusetts in your accent. No.
Oh, really? Well, it's funny what you would hear. I mean, I've heard Sri Lanka, or I've heard...
That's
you
a different part of the world.
It depends where you're from in the world. You hear different things. So yeah, I've got
Right.
Yeah.
Do you want to walk us through maybe a Cliff Notes version of how you made it to the Bay?
I love Cliff Notes.
Okay, they're good.
I actually was living in Switzerland at the time.
Okay, that's the other accent I detected.
Yes, yes.
Swiss,
Ja,
Italian,
ja,
and
ich bin
French, and
Schweizer.
German.
Yeah, ich bin Schweizer. My best friend's brother was founding a brewery, on the process of, starting a brewery called the 21st Amendment in San Francisco. And I first got wind of it. I was living in Zurich, and they were fundraising. And, the years went by, and at this point, I'd moved to Anguilla in the Caribbean.
Okay.
And at this point, the funds were getting closer. It was becoming a more realistic proposition.
Were you already in the kitchen? Were you already cooking? Or?
Oh, yeah. I started cooking in New York City.
Okay.
Somewhere back then.
Yeah.
And from there, I went to work in Germany and Switzerland. So, yeah, I started cooking officially in New York City,
Okay.
where I earned my stripes, and I went on to work in Europe for 9 years, and then through the Caribbean. And then I hit the Bay around the year 21st Amendment opened.
So that was what brought you out, was
That's what
your
brought me
friends opening this place. And I'm guessing most of our listeners are familiar with 21st Amendment.
I would definitely hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. I mean, it's an iconic brand. It's our 23rd year anniversary this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're doing well.
Yeah.
They've expanded to San Leandro,
Yes.
and they're still putting out that iconic watermelon wheat. And
Yes.
their brew
Is
free
that-
or die IPA.
Hell or High Watermelon?
Hell or High Water,
That's the
very
one.
good.
Yeah, and it's like at Trader Joe's now.
Trader
Also,
Joe's,
yeah.
it's
Other-
everywhere.
It's everywhere, yeah.
They're in over 30-something states, I believe.
People like it.
Close to 40, maybe 40, yeah.
Okay, so something interesting that I'm picking up in your, even the Cliff Notes version, is that you moved around a lot. And then you came to the Bay, and I don't know if between coming here for 21st Amendment and today, if you left and came back, but you're still here.
Oh, so there's no turning back. I mean, this is it. Longest place I've ever lived, and I've lived in many countries. But yeah, it's been home for 23 years. And
Can you speak to what it is about? That was our theme a couple of seasons ago, is what is it about this place? Meaning
The
San
Bay?
Francisco and the Bay, yeah.
I love San Francisco. I mean, I live in Berkeley. Spent a lot of my time in Oakland, and between there and so on. I just love it. It's laid back. It's proximity to so many great things, as we know. I mean, let's not go to the old things we hear all the time: the wine country,
Yes.
the Sierras, Southern California, the desert. I mean, it's really just perfectly located, and of course, I love the international nature of it.
Right.
Great food scene. And, it's laid back. It's not New York City.
The laid back, not New York City part, I definitely relate to. I came here directly from New York, and it just wasn't.
Oh, okay.
I love New York, but
Yeah.
it's not. For
It's
me, a
not quite
place
the same,
to
yeah.
live.
Got to move around here, right?
Yeah, and I always joke. I'm like, the proximity thing. I say like, you can go in 3 directions and find yourself in a different kind of paradise. And if you have a boat, you can go in the 4th.
Oh, yeah,
You know
that's
what I
right.
mean? Well, you got to get out the Golden Gate. That's a little tricky.
That's
A
true.
little choppy waters. But,
Yeah. Anywhere close to the water is good for me. Yeah. All my
Yeah.
vacations are based on that.
yeah.
So,
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you want to maybe quick fire talk about places you worked between 21st Amendment and Old Skool?
oh, absolutely. So I started at the 21st Amendment, and then there was a brief stint at the White Dog Café in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And then I came back and I worked at another brewery called Magnolia.
I've heard of that too.
Yeah. Magnolia for a couple of years. And one of the ideas of doing that was because Dave McLean, the founder, was about to open up the Alembic down the street from Magnolia.
Oh, yeah.
And he wanted me to be a part of that. So I joined Magnolia. We did upgrades there on the menu, the space, everything. And then the Alembic opened.
Okay.
And I was going back and forth between Magnolia and the Alembic.
Okay.
And I did that for a couple of years. And then I joined Joie de Vivre Hotels.
Okay.
I think there was another stint in between that. It was a restaurant called Sneaky Tiki.
Sneaky Tiki?
Yeah, it was a Pan-Asian restaurant. Because I'd worked in Thailand,
Okay.
I went in for the beginning. of that project.
That was here in the city?
It was here in the city, in the old Hamburger Mary's space. Do you remember the iconic Hamburger Mary's?
Of course, yeah.
So it's in that space.
Got it.
And funny enough, the first time I visited San Francisco, on our agenda was Hamburger Mary's. Because I remember standing there one day and going, there's something strange about it. Something about, and then I was like, oh my God, this used to be Hamburger Mary's.
Right.
Right? So it
You
was just
felt
funny.
that nostalgia. or whatever.
Yeah.
That's great.
So I did that, and then I joined Joie de Vivre Hotels.
Okay.
And the reason I lived in, I do live in Berkeley now, is because they took over the historic Hotel Durant,
Okay.
which is now Graduate Hotels.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and they did the remodel, the boutique-y thing, and so we revamped Henry's, and I worked there, for a couple of years, and then I transferred to another one of our properties in Jack London Square called Miss Pearl's.
Okay.
There was an original one here, Miss Pearl's Jam House, founded by legendary chef Joey Altman, and they did a bigger version in Oakland, so, left Henry's, went to Miss Pearl's. And then that shut down, and then I opened up my own place in Frank Ogawa Plaza.
In Oakland.
In the Rotunda building right across from City Hall.
What was your place called?
It's called Cross Burgers.
Cross Burgers, okay.
Yeah, and I did a lot of catering. It was the front because I had a lot of catering in the building. We had a lot of law firms, and my friend owned the building, and so the whole idea was, look, we have all this business in here, so there was a lot of catering in the back end.
Yeah.
And we had a good run, but the location was a little challenging. And then after that, I went private for a few years.
Catering or?
I did some catering, but I also had a group of private clients
I got it.
that I worked with throughout the Bay Area, mostly in the South Bay.
Okay.
Did that, and then I came to visit. I got an invitation from Teresa. Chef, it's our 10-year, anniversary of the brick-and-mortar. It'd be great if you came as the founding chef and volunteered. I said, Teresa, that was so awesome. Thanks for, thinking about Chefy. And so I came. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
The mayor was there, a lot of founders, both presidents of the Warriors, some other, donors types and so on. And then I'd asked Teresa earlier, I said, I don't have to speak, do I? She goes, oh, no. And of course, immediately, Chef, you got some words to say.
Yep.
So I spoke. And it was just wonderful, just the feeling and to see how far Old Skool had come. Mm-hmm. And a few months later, I was here working. It just happened. It was just literally, it just happened.
Before we get too deeply into the story of Old Skool and all that and your involvement, throughout your, I guess, culinary career, do you have a niche or a specialty, or do you have a wider array of things that you do?
I have a wide array. I don't have a niche specialty. I mean, you have to understand, when I as a child growing up I don't remember Nigeria at all. I was just born there.
Okay.
But I remember Sierra Leone well. And so from Sierra Leone to Worcester, Massachusetts, and then from Worcester to the Soviet Union, and then from the I say Soviet Union because it was the Soviet Union back then, living in Moscow.
Right.
And then going to England, then back to Sierra Leone, and then New York. So my palate was already, you have those formidable years where, like a language, you pick up a lot faster. So my food palate was all over the map.
You're learning through your palate. Yeah.
Right. And so even though I was trained classically in French cuisine, but I kind of feel that you use those to apply techniques in how you cook. Mm-hmm. But it's not all about, it's all French for me. It's just an amalgamation of everything, right?
Yeah.
So I'd never would like to say, I'm fusion, because I'm not really fusion. Mm-hmm. More like we're global, right?
Right.
Using what we have around us, which is an abundance of the best produce in the world.
Another reason to like living here.
I love it.
To love living here.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Whatever I like.
Come on, stone fruit in season. Boom. Next to, habanero chilies and products from Mexico.
And the greens.
Grown here, all the greens.
Oh, my God. Nuts
we
in
love
the
our
valley.
Greens. Oh, we love our greens.
Is it fair to call the current menu at Old Skool soul food?
International soul food.
International soul food. Because it is some of the best I've ever had. So, what informed that writing of the menu?
Well, the idea of Old Skool, just tying into what Old Skool is, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, and who's been through Old Skool, the students that have come through and their backgrounds, mm-hmm. right? You had kids from Sierra Leone, from Tonga, from El Salvador, from Mexico, from Asia. So I mean, with that broad, the idea was for them to come in and bring their backgrounds in that would influence the menu, right?
Okay.
That's why you see a lot of students' names on the menu.
Yes.
That, Abu's groundnut, aka peanut butter stew.
Love it.
The Tamao Pei Tong Ota. I forgot the boy's name. His mother came in and gave the recipe. So that's what we want to bring here. Yeah, we know what soul food is, but of course there's stereotypes, right? The first thing you think about when you think about soul food is, collard greens and cornbread.
Yeah.
But every other country has their own iteration of soul food, right?
Right.
So thus, the international moniker.
And I would argue that soul food, by its very nature, is international because a lot of it's traced back to enslaved people from Africa.
Exactly.
Bringing that food and that culture over.
Exactly.
And we think it's American. And it is in a way.
Yeah.
But it's also,
Yeah.
I want to hear what it was like for you to take on that role of working with youth in the kitchen. Because was that something different than what you had previously done?
Oh, 100%. Because it's not. I mean, a restaurant's a restaurant. You know what your job definition is, but here, you're running 2 ships, right? Mm-hmm. There's the restaurant. Well, you're running 3 ships. There's the restaurant where you have to put out the quality of the food, so you have to make sure that goes out in time. Mm-hmm. Then there's the patience level where you have to work. You're training the kids at the same time, so you have to find the balance where, because they're not trained chefs.
Right.
They're just starting. Some of them have never worked before.
Right.
So you have that running parallel to that. How do you morph the two to get a business going, but at the same time, include the children.
Right.
I mean, the young people, youth, right? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the third one is it's the kids, right? They all have their different challenges, and, every day's different for them. Mm-hmm. And not all of them want to be chefs, and they'll tell you, and the good thing is they will tell you quite honestly, chef, we're glad of all this, but we don't really particularly want to be a chef. And, of course, it's not about being a chef. It's just about, do we show up to work on time? Do we follow through on a program? Do we clean up? You know what I mean? Just doing the things you would do in any other profession.
That translate outside of a restaurant.
Exactly. Yeah. So, it takes a while. It's like braiding hair, but I kind of feel like we're braiding.
Yeah.
Right? It's a braiding process.
Well, and you said 3 different things. It's like walking, chewing gum, and juggling. I don't know.
Yeah.
Doing 3 different things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Not
right.
at different times.
Right.
At the same time.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's great because, and it takes a while to settle into it.
Sure.
It's not like something you just come into, because there's so many things I didn't know. It's one thing when you come and volunteer and you go home. But after a matter of time, you get integrally involved with everything going on around you. And out here, especially in the Bayview, it's outside of the restaurant. What's happening outside of your environment, right? It's all interconnected, right? Where you have certain people, they're looking out for the plaza. You have these groups, they all want to talk to you as if they're, they're just as respectful as the kids in terms of when you come in, hey, chef, how's it going? So you're involved with not just inside, but also the outside to some degree.
Right.
Because you have to make it through to get in. So it's really interesting. It's like another world.
Yeah.
But,
How many youth are currently in the program?
We're in the 20s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so that's 20,
20-something.
I'm guessing you might have worked in kitchens that were that big.
Oh, I have.
But this is different, right? Like you said, not all of them they want to be here, but they don't necessarily want to go on cooking.
Right.
So it's different challenges.
It is.
I would think.
Yeah. But it's, I always joke and say it's like a 25 person Old Skool team is like a 300 cook hotel. It's the same amount of intensity. Because there's a lot of moving parts, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I love it. And my favorite expression that I've come to use lately is, when you get into Old Skool, not all the time, obviously, but certain times in the night, especially if it's not too busy, now you're finding things for them to do. A couple over here doing a baking project. Okay, you guys go over there and, let's do a little cleaning project, right? Mm-hmm. But it's like being thrown into a washing machine, right? And all the laundry's flying around you. You're trying to grab, you're just...
It's either going to get clean or you're going to get hurt.
Right, yeah, yeah. So, it's that chaos, and you know what I mean? And you got caught up and swirled in, and then the day's over, and you go, and you're driving home, and you're decompressing and thinking, okay, tomorrow we're going to do it that way, or, it was a great day. So-and-so did great. This one did that, so... Yeah, it's every day's a different day. So,
Good thing we got Eddie.
in reconnecting with Teresa, for example, when she just brought up earlier, she said, "Oh, Chef, there was a jacket of yours from the White Dog Cafe," and that triggered something. But she's pulled up so many memories, right, from the beginning, right, when we used to wheel around the city, meeting different people, trying to get people involved. And then I started thinking about, oh my God, there was Stephanie, there was Anna, there was my friend Stone Williams, who used to bring in the big hitters. And then she had her own, you know, there were like all these people that we would meet together. She'd pull the people in, I would have all these people. And then in reflecting back, right, and seeing how many people over the years have come through Old Skool, this Old Skool should be like a university.
There could be a
If
yearbook.
you think of its history, does that make sense?
Oh, I like that, a yearbook.
There could be a yearbook.
Yeah, a
But it would be
yearbook.
it would be a year's book.
Ooh, I like that a lot.
You know, Teresa,
Yeah.
and then she pulled out photographs.
Yeah.
Or I
20 next
was
year's
like,
20 years.
I was like, oh my God, you were there, or I was there, and what was I?
Yeah.
I've forgotten so many things. So it's just been beautiful, just to.
Well, I think it's easy when you're
a lot of.
doing the thing.
Yeah, it's
You're
lot
in
of,
the weeds,
A lot
and
of
then
running
you
around.
take a step back and you see the big jungle that it all is.
It really is. I think that what Eddie's really touching on is what a beautiful woven tapestry of community.
Yes.
So many, and I always talk about it being a beautiful big village, right? Because it really is. It's not a one person. We're meant to do things together and in community, and that feeling of the village coming around our young people, where you need the wisdom from everyone, you need the skills from that sense of like, oh, you can go into this house, you can go over to here, basically you've got this whole neighborhood village that can surround and support and mentor and open doors. And so when I think about how many people have touched Old Skool, have put their fingerprints on Old Skool, that have had a part of making it possible, it's so true. It's really fun and even having people that will bring up memories that I've forgotten. It's like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that, right? So I am excited about next year, all year celebrating 20 years since it started.
That is no small thing.
Yeah, and all the people that have had a part in making this special place what it is today.
That was Old Skool Cafe's chef, Eddie Blyden, and their founder and president, Teresa Goines. We're running a series we did last year over the next couple weeks, so be on the lookout for those season-appropriate episodes wherever you get your podcasts, starting next Tuesday. We'll be back in November with brand new episodes on some of our favorite humans in San Francisco. Music for Storied San Francisco was produced, performed, and curated by Otis McDonald. Michelle Kilfeather does original photography for us. Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast is our contributing producer. And the show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in our 6th season, we have more than 200 episodes available on our website, storiedsf.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're able to, please rate and review the show, and drop us a line at storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Keep rejecting those silly doom loop narratives about our city. Stay wacky, weird, healthy, and creative. And we'll see you next time on Storied San Francisco.
This podcast is a proud member of the BFF.FM podcast network. Learn more at podcasts.bff.fm.
BFF.FM, best frequencies forever.